All right, so we have breaking Jets news here. The Jets and Tanner Engstrand have decided to part ways, according to Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero. Now, we also got word from the Jets' social media account that they decided to also interview Dolphins passing game coordinator Brian Duker for their DC opening. Let's put that news on the back burner for a second and focus on this whole offensive coordinator thing. The rumor was that the Jets were going to strip Tanner Engstrand's play calling for this upcoming season. Now, personally, when I watched Tanner Engstrand last year, he wasn't a great OC. He was not an above average offensive coordinator, in my opinion. You look at that roster, he didn't have anything to work with from a talent standpoint, from a quarterback, definitely from a quarterback standpoint, from a wide receiver depth standpoint. And then you factor in the injuries, right? Garrett Wilson on IR, Braylon Allen on IR, AVT on IR. Just not a lot to work with. Then you're looking at the defense being utterly atrocious, terrible, completely terrible. And now you're asking Tanner Engstrand, the first year OC with not a lot of help and no quarterback, to play catch up to win games. Yeah, not really the best position. Am I putting Tanner Engstrand on a pedestal here and saying, okay, he's the next Mike LaFleur, right? A young OC with potential that didn't really have a lot to work with. And then in 2-3 years later, he's now being talked about as a potential head coach. No, I don't want to go that far, right? Again, I don't think Tanner was some elite offensive mind or anything like that. But when I look at the New York Jets right now, Tanner Engstrand is not in my top 5 areas of concern, if I'm being real. But again, the Jets wanted to make a change with Engstrand and his play calling duties, and the talk was that he was going to be demoted. Now, naturally speaking, that stuff doesn't really happen all that often unless you are flat out terrible like Nathaniel Hackett, and it's like an in-season thing, right? And even Hackett had like ties to the guys on the roster, right? He was buddies with Rodgers and buddies with Adams and buddies with Lazard and stuff like that. It's just so much like drama, buddy, high school drama, it felt like. But with Tanner, again, we're in the middle of the offseason. January 27th, this is still up in the air here, and now they're moving on. The big name that's talked about is Frank Reich. Connor Hughes has continued to push the Frank Reich thing. Boomer Esiason chimed in, basically linking the two. And I would love Frank Reich. I got to be real. Is he, again, Shanahan, Bill Walsh, Sean McVay, Andy Reid? No, he's not. But Frank Reich is someone with head coaching experience, offensive coordinator experience, play calling experience. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's a former player / quarterback. I feel really good about if I have to hand this offense to somebody late January here, if you show me Frank Reich's resume, I'm saying, okay, you're more than qualified. And look, the Jets are damned if they do, damned if they don't. And you can make the same argument for defensive coordinator, right? If you go out and you hire the older retread, the guy with experience, the pushback is, okay, this guy's in his 60s. He's not the young, exciting hire. We know who he is. This, where's the upside? But then if we decide to go with a young offensive coach, a young new defensive coordinator, the pushback is, okay, is Aaron Glenn going to have to micromanage him? How does he handle adversity? How does he handle the locker room? How does he handle game planning and play calling? Is Glenn going to have to hold his hand because he's just so inexperienced? Are we going to be in a situation where it's going to take a solid 10 weeks of the regular season to really get into the groove of play calling on the defensive side of the football? Like either path the Jets want to go down. Look, Brian Flores, as much as I love Brian Flores and some of these other defensive minds, you don't have guys waiting in line to coach this football team. So you have to look at who's out there. And again, whether the Jets go veteran or whether the Jets go young guy, there's going to be criticism in either path. So it's an unfortunate spot that the Jets are in. But again, looking back at Frank Reich, if we are baton passing this offense to somebody, Frank Reich, I think, provides stability. He provides someone who's not going to overreact. He's someone who's not going to be overwhelmed with play calling. And also, think about this too for a second. The Jets, they've got to make a change at the quarterback position, and there's a chance that they could draft one in this year's class. I feel really good, actually, about giving a young quarterback to Frank Reich and saying, hey, you know what? what's in the best interest of him, right? Because again, Reich was not only an offensive-minded head coach, a former offensive coordinator, Super Bowl winner, knows what it looks like, but he was also a quarterback. And more importantly, he was a backup quarterback. You think he understands the value of sitting, learning, and watching someone else do it? I think that makes sense. I really don't mind Frank Reich. I really don't. I know it's unpopular to say because, the Carolina Panthers tenure, one major criticism I see all the time, it's almost like Jets fans, don't get your hopes up. Reich didn't call plays in the Super Bowl winning season with the Eagles. He was just the offensive coordinator. He can't be that good. Well, how about we take a look at when he did call plays with the Indianapolis Colts in his first season in 2018 with Andrew Luck, where they were top 5 in points per game. And the following season, when Andrew Luck suddenly retired in preseason, and you have to quickly pivot to a backup option in Jacoby Brissett, they were 16th in points per game. Then they have another quarterback change. Phillip Rivers, 9th points per game. Next season, Carson Wentz, another change to the quarterback position, top 10 again, sitting there at 9th when Frank Reich was calling plays. So I don't want to look at that Eagles season and say, he didn't call plays. He sucks. He doesn't know how to call plays. No, we cannot ignore the positives to make an argument here. We need to factor in Frank Reich's complete body of work. That includes Carolina. That includes these past couple of seasons helping out his old buddy Andrew Luck at Stanford. Again, I feel comfortable passing the baton to Frank Reich. Now, will it happen? I don't know. The reporting has been all over the place with this whole thing, both on offense and defense. So, look, if we go out and get Reich, cool. I'm fine with it. Is he a top 3 offensive mind? No, but he's a veteran. He's solid. He's experienced. I like that approach for a team that has had offensive problems, quarterback problems, passing game problems for a long time. I don't mind Reich. Now, as far as the whole Brian Duker situation, I mean, let's just look at the timeline of events here. I mean, what the heck is happening? Steve Wilkes is fired in December. Aaron Glenn decides to pass the defense on to Chris Harris and doesn't want to call plays. Okay, questionable decision. He's a defensive mind, but okay. Then we get to the offseason, and weeks go by, we hear nothing from the reporters. Then all of a sudden, we get the update from the Jets' social media account that we've interviewed 8 different candidates, ranging from all over the map, right? You have a young up-and-coming guys like DeMarcus Covington and Bonda, Durante Jones, Jim Leonard. You have some older guys that have DC experience like Wink Martindale and Jim O'Neill. So it was obvious that the Jets were, they were casting a wide net, if you will. Okay, I understand it, right? The Jets aren't really a great, desirable job. They're not stacked and chock full of talent. Look at a team like the Cleveland Browns and the struggles that they're having trying to find a head coach. There was like a 24-hour span where they had 4 coaches reject them, not even including the top-tier coaches like Harbaugh and McCarthy and these guys. I mean, even the Arizona Cardinals, right? The struggles to find someone that is capable and who really wants that job. When you have 10 head coaching openings, there's a lot of moving parts. You have coaches that are fired, now new openings elsewhere, coaching ties, connections all over the place. There's a lot happening. So I don't mind the Jets reaching out and talking to, a whole bunch of different candidates, trying to put their best foot forward and see who offers, the best available plan, plan of attack moving forward. But from that point, you would assume, okay, you've talked to 8. You probably want to narrow it down to your top 3, top 4, and you dive a little bit deeper into the state of the roster, into the future plans, into the draft class, into free agency, right? Players that fit. Are you aligned with Glenn, right? More so digging deeper on the whole surface level. Okay, what's the structure of the defense going to look like? How do your philosophies line up with mine? Who's going to be calling plays and this and that, like just get the basics out of the way. Then you bring guys back in for a second interview. And then we have Hughes talking about how Wink is basically the front runner and the heavy favorite. And then Rosenblatt's talking about that and Samani's talking about that. All signs are pointing to Wink Martindale. He flies in and meets with the Jets for a second time, supposedly having contact with Aaron Glenn and the Jets for weeks, dating back to December. And we don't really get an update until Connor Hughes comes back out and is like, this Wink Martindale thing could happen, but it might not happen. But then we have another report from Connor Hughes basically just saying that the defensive coordinator candidates that have interviewed for the job have hinted at the idea that Aaron Glenn might want to call plays now. And then so we get another report saying, oh, well, we could potentially keep our eye on the Jets promoting Chris Harris or hiring a young guy and Glenn just taking over as the play calling defensive coordinator. And now, based off of this new report with Brian Duker here, who has a crossover with Aaron Glenn from his days back in Detroit. He was the safety and DB coach with the Lions. Jim O'Neill currently holds that position. He spent the last 2 seasons with the Miami Dolphins, where we've talked about this before with Matt Araujo. The Dolphins defense is not good, right? Bottom half of the league in tons of major important defensive statistics: points per game, yards per game, red zone defense, third down. It's not good. It's not good. So we're now reaching out to new candidates for first interviews here. So the process just feels like a mess. I think the whole idea of like, oh, these are one of 32 jobs, it's a little overblown. I mean, we're seeing that with some of these head coaching searches. Candidates will stick in their current spot and then just jump back into the market, jump back into the cycle, the carousel the following year. That's happening quite a lot, actually. Like, teams are quickly pivoting here. I figured it was just going to be, we're going to talk to the 8. I'm cool with that. Then you narrow it down 3 to 4 different candidates that interviewed the best. And then from that point, once you start getting into the more detailed approach when it comes to the offseason and how things are going to be deployed and installed, how players fit, then you can really make your determination. But, if the Jets are now reaching out to someone for the first time, who, by the way, up to my knowledge, has not interviewed for any other DC jobs this cycle, I really don't know where we go from here. So with offense, if Reich is the guy, or maybe we bring in Matt Nagy, he's out there. Maybe we bring in Josh Grizzard, who, in the first half of the season, everybody loved Grizzard. People were saying that he's going to be the next great head coach. Then Tampa falls apart. They have the injuries and Grizzard is fired. And some said, is Todd Bowles, kind of making a scapegoat out of Grizzard. Because everybody knew Todd Bowles was on the hot seat, but he ends up keeping his job. So, I don't know. We'll see how this whole thing plays out. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.